and welcome to my video on how to boil, blanch, and freeze tomatoes. Boiling and freezing your tomatoes is a good way of preserving your tomatoes. As if you grow tomatoes, you probably have too many tomatoes that you don't know what to do with all of them. So freezing them and using them for later and during the fall and winter months is a very good idea. A lot of people suggest canning. Canning, I've actually never tried it personally, but it does look very labor intensive and looks very long. Boiling and freezing is a sort of an express or poor man's way of freezing your tomatoes for a longer term. So we're just about, the water is just about boiling here, and so I'll just show you a couple little things before we get started. A lot of people recommend using unblemished tomatoes. I personally prefer my slightly imperfect tomatoes. Tomatoes that have big cracks in them and are already starting to attract fruit flies. These actually, when you boil them, these get cleaned up quite a bit, and you pull off the skin and you can see these cracks, and you just cut them out and you throw them into your compost to give to your worms, and you freeze. You freeze this, you take the core out, and the rest of this actually looks quite good. So these are all basically ready to go. I picked these a day or two ago and let them ripen a little bit on my kitchen table. This is a 7.5 liter or 8 quart pot. So this is good for small batches of tomatoes. So I'm going to do probably 2 or 3 small batches. I will show you how to do one from beginning to end. But you want your tomatoes, obviously, so you're limited only by the size of your pot, the amount of tomatoes, and the amount of time and other resources that you can put into it. Obviously, if you have a freezer, you could do this for, you would not be limited by freezer space, so you could certainly boil even more batches if you wanted. As you see, I've also pulled out the green tops that attach it to the stem. So this water is just about boiling, so I'm going to show you how this is done. Another thing I have here is a little pot of cold water. Some people say it needs to be ice water. I find cold water does pretty much the same thing. But let's get started. This is getting hot. I can hear this. So we come over here. As you see, you got the water is ready to go, and we carefully drop our tomatoes in. Okay, that fit that batch quite nicely. Now you count to 10. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10, 1,000. And then you pull them out. And set them aside. As you see, the skin is actually, you may not be able to see that, but the skin has actually already started to peel off on some of these, so that's it. That's all they need is 10 seconds. You can boil them for, I think, up to 60, but less is more, I think. Okay, so there we go. Now we let them cool a bit. I'm gonna drop the temperature on this, and we're gonna do another little batch in a few minutes, but I just want to finish this one first. Okay, let's take whichever, try to remember the order you put them in, obviously. So we'll set that down here. And as you see, the skin peels off very easily. Very easily. And you want to core it. Of course, you'll want to core the tomato a little bit as well. Take that green part out. I'm having trouble doing this simply because I'm sacrificing one hand to the camera. But you'll want to pull the core out. Just a second. Some people use a paring knife to do this. I find your fingers are just fine. We're going to cut the bottom off. And there we go. There we go. A tomato is ready to go. Throw that out. Worms. And there we go. We've got our bag ready to go. And there we go. We have our first tomato. Very easy. Much easier than all day of canning. So if you want a good method to use up some extra tomatoes, I think bagging them, boiling, blanching, and bagging, and then freezing is the best way to do it. Another little tip is don't put these in the refrigerator. If you don't have room in the freezer, let them cool at room temperature, because once you put them in the refrigerator, they start to become a bit mealy. Anyway, I will probably do a couple more batches. I find I can do about 3 batches and that fills a bag, but then I split it into smaller batches which are easier to store in the freezer. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and maybe when you're faced with an excess of tomatoes, as I am, perhaps you'll consider doing this to save a few for the fall and winter months. These will be very good in things like chilies and spaghettis. I wouldn't use them in a tomato sandwich, but for chili, spaghetti, stews, soups, anything that, you know, that mashes the tomato up, it will be great for that. Thank you.